Hello everyone, welcome to Breaking Into Your Building, a hacker's guide of unauthorized access. I'm your host, Tim Roberts.
I'm Brent White. So who are these guys again? We are pen testers, senior security consultants for HD Security, and we specialize in physical intrusion, physical site assessment, things like that. So our whole thing is sort of what Jason does with trying to gain access to buildings, but we also like to bring some cool tools along with us as well. So we aren't as cool as Jason, I suppose, because we require tools. So yeah. So the wehackpeople.com, that's our personal blog. You can go there. Some of the things we'll talk about today, bypass methods, things like that. You can see some of that information as well.
Something we just like to always say in our talks is not all hackers are bad. You know, the term hacker is a little subjective, but we like to think of, you know, we're all hackers, right? As long as we can make something do something that it wasn't intended to do, you know, for our benefit, I guess.
Yeah, and so with the media, again, I always ask this question, does anybody in here wear a ski mask and gloves when you're working at your computer hacking away? No, you don't. Put your hand up. Maybe you do, if cool, you're the first person that's ever raised your hand. So yeah, I mean, you see all these stupid images. I mean, what is this? I don't know.
Yeah, just Google hacker, and these are the things you come up with, right?
Yeah.
You just look in the image search, and
just ridiculous stuff. And there's this image too of, like, you know, you hear the word hacker, they think that you're going to rob them in the parking lot and steal their baby or something. You know, it's like, hey, we're people too. So
give me all your data.
And we're very mature. You'll see that in our slides and things as we go on. And something else too, anybody that has questions, just raise your hand. We'll answer those as we go. We don't have to wait until the end. So
throw something at us.
Yeah, or if you want to heckle, that's cool too. So just really quick, just unauthorized, just want to clarify that this is when we are taking on the security posture, or taking on the role of an attacker, a potential attacker. We don't just roll up somewhere and try to break into a building because that's illegal. We have permission from that client first, obviously. So that is what we mean when we say unauthorized.
So Brent was saying some of the things that we do after we've established our rules of engagement and the scope of the assessment. What's the goal? Where are we trying to get into? Are we trying to get into an executive suite, into a data center? Are we trying to steal a server out of the room? And you know, things are discussed during the kickoff call. But mostly, what Brent and I focus on these days are covert physical security assessments. What this means is we go in, try to covertly sneak into your building, and while we're in there, we test your physical security controls too. So we usually add social engineering in there, but it's very dynamic, and it depends on what the client is looking for and kind of the situation as to what we choose to do.
Right. Yeah, sometimes we do need to interact with people, and other times we do what we can without you know, being noticed. We try to stay as gray as possible. So when we talk about surveillance, you know, there's so many tools out there. I just wanted to show some of these really cheap things that you can get, like the spy cam pen, or even a cheap little lighter with a camera inside of it. I mean, this stuff, if you're going to use things like this, change the housing of it, because there are people that are trained to spot these things. So if you just roll in there with, you know, one of these spy pens or something, they're going to say, oh, that's not a real ink pen, come with me. So be creative with these things. If you do need to start working into more like artful concealment with some of these tools, there are a lot of other resources, and we're happy to talk to you about that as well.
This is something too I want to add, a little disclaimer. Whenever you do the rules of engagement, you're talking to the client, make sure that you have authorization to do any kind of recording, because some of our assessments will record while we're on site. Some of them, you know, of course we take pictures of evidence and such, but you need to make sure that that's clear, because there are certain laws and stuff you got to be compliant with. So in addition to the surveillance, some of the things we do, we like the Mavic Pro just because it's fun. But we just put like a Wi-Fi, like a Nano on the top. You know, that's really simple, and it was a quick thing to do. We got some industrial strength Velcro tape, taped it on there. It can still fly really well.
So, a lot of advanced engineering went into that setup.
Yes, very much so. Very highly technical. We put some gaffer's tape to keep the antennas from flopping around. But one of the things we do is we'll just fly it over there and land on the building. You know, there are ways to prevent this. There are Faraday things you can put on top of your roof.
Signal jammers.
Signal jammers and such. But this is an easy way to just go and set up an evil AP or sniff something. Or if you want to put even a RFID cloner, you can get close enough or something. But the noise of these things is too loud to fly around people.
Yeah, it's definitely not something you want to do as your first step during reconnaissance, because you're going to call attention that something is going on.
Yeah, truthfully, the only time we ever use a drone is just at night when we do some reconnaissance, just to see where the access points are and like outside the entry points and the roof, to get a good look at the roof, just to do a physical assessment of that without climbing up there.
Yeah, so if the certain location, if it's hard to see, with cameras, if it's hard to get good photographs of what the access controls are from on the door, or where their guard stations are, things like that, and maybe the images on Google Maps have been sanitized in a way that they aren't helpful, then that's when we might, throw the drone up there. So,
so what is Tim and Brent doing up here? That is
just playing.
Yeah, we're just playing.
Software-defined radio. It's awesome. It's useful for places where you might go where you can perhaps snoop on security teams if they are using unencrypted radios. There are also ways to decrypt those signals as well.
Or if you just want to listen to the radio, you're really bored.
Yeah. One night when I was playing around learning to use this, it's kind of an embarrassing and funny story. I was in Dallas. I was laying in my hotel bed, and I started hearing something, and it was this lady, and she was like, "These diamonds are amazing. You have to buy these diamonds because they're not going to be around for long." And I was like, "Awesome. What is this?" So I start tuning it in even more, and it ended up just being a QVC broadcast. Where it's like, man, so close. So yeah, I'm still learning SDR. Apparently. Again, going on to surveillance. You can use these things. There's a lot of good places that you can use them. But if you're going into more higher security areas, again, change the housing. There are some really, really good versions of these things. But just the cheapo off-the-shelf things, they can work, but you can also burn yourself pretty quick.
Yeah, I bought this, it was like a 1080p, it's called Cop Cam. It was like a little square. It looked like a miniature one of the fidget boxes or whatever. Battery had a micro SD on it, and I mean, it works great. It's just a little tiny square you can just kind of carry around and put wherever you want to.
Yep. So just real quick, we're going to go through some of this stuff really quick because we have a lot of content, but there are some cases where if you're doing certain reconnaissance surveillance, you don't necessarily want to burn yourself, especially if it's a smaller team and they are, they actually are pretty legitimate with their coverage for security cameras, things like that. There might be some cases where you need to change your appearance just for some quick surveillance.
Yeah, we don't do a whole lot of this because we just kind of, depending on whatever guys we come up with, if we want to pretend to be a contractor, a vendor, maintenance worker, Ebenezer Scrooge, a Gus sitting right there.
Yeah. Joe Dirt.
We do a lot of acting too outside of this. So the improv exercises and things help you to blend in.
And a quick side note: the picture of me as a land surveyor. You can set that up as long as you have like a high-vis vest and something people will not pay attention to you in most areas. So you can even have that in that tripod and have a huge camera lens on there that is obviously not land surveying equipment at all, taking photographs of things, but because you are positioning yourself in a certain area with a certain look, you're basically invisible. So. And
then blending in too, this just reminded me of it, but carrying around the ladder, I mean, you guys see people do this online a lot, they just carry a step ladder, but one of the guys on our team, I was the project manager, and so I had my fake number on there. We found out who the property manager was for this building that the client was renting from. I wrote up a fake letter saying that we need to, inspection because there was a recall on the sprinkler head model, blah, blah, blah. And then I gave them this letter, and he pretended to be with the property manager, and he was able to just walk around in with a step ladder. And when they asked him, they looked at the letter and they called me, and everything was fine. And he installed a rogue access point in their ceiling in the conference room with his ladder.
So just quick on this, I was doing a physical assessment against a hospital. It was my first time with the hospital, wasn't really sure what to expect. And the longer I was there, which was quite a few hours, learned that different roles have different color scrubs. So like sanitation crew, for example, would wear the maroon scrubs. So I didn't have any scrubs with me, but after walking around, the gift shop at the hospital had every type of scrub for sale. This is actually from that place. So
one of the best
helpful.
ones to use too is the black, because the phlebotomists use the black scrubs, and they come and go, and there's such a turnover from these guys because there's several of them taking blood from different locations and stuff. So yeah, it's pretty handy. Like a
and again, if you're trying to blend in, having that gigantic lens trying to hide it with something like that, nope. Just use common sense. Now, if you're somewhere and it makes sense to say your backstory would be taking pictures of a sporting event or national landmarks or something like that, and make yourself look more like a tourist than some shady dude trying to act like he's not doing something.
So this is just a couple of the things that we carry around in our bags, but not all the time do you need lock picks or fancy tools or bypass tools. Sometimes it's just a matter of having a piece of plastic or, like Jason was saying, a friendly or dopey face, trying to encourage people, trying to, talk to people. And so it's not always, hey, I need to learn, I got to be awesome. I got to be great at lock sport, and I got to be a fantastic lock picker to get into these things.
Yeah, and that talent does help. We're definitely not knocking that. There have been instances where we have needed to pick locks.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we don't use it very much. And then, these are pretty big kits. So we actually do a lot of research and work into dumbing these things down. So this is my wallet. I keep several things in this very small traveler's wallet. I've got a few different bypass methods and other things that I keep in here. And if you just look at it, it just looks like a flat wallet. Yeah. So,
also, this is a neat little tool that Billy Boatwright had made himself. And yeah, we just kind of got a couple picks in there. Yep. The tensioner's bent, but it's very easy to conceal, and it's easy to use.
And I keep gaffer's tape on a lot of things. There's so many uses for gaffer's tape, and I'll show you a sort of a way to maintain access with some gaffer's tape in a bit. Again, I'm just talking about we like to take our kits and sort of dumb them down so that we can have tools that we need that we can conceal. And so this is a mini laptop. It's the GPD Pro. It's about this big, but it's a full working laptop. And of course the Wi-Fi Pineapple and some other tools that you see there. Milky Way, that's a real Milky Way. That's when you get access to a place, especially if there are armed guards. Sometimes your adrenaline can be going as you might expect.
And so I tell people this all the time too. Like when I first get into a building, I usually go to the bathroom.
Yep.
And I sit in a stall for a little bit just to get my adrenaline and stuff down, and I'm not as sweaty and look like I just broke in or snuck in.
So the Milky Way or any type of food, when you eat that, it helps to naturally suppress the fight or flight response. So it helps you to sort of naturally chill out and get your mind set. As Tim mentioned, plastic door shims. This is the tool that I personally use more than any other tool to get into places. So you can see how quick this is.
So this is an office to this office is to one of the executives there, and we were showing them afterwards because we got into the facility, and then they were like, "How did you get in there?" And we're like, "Well, I mean, there's a couple different ways to do it. You have a nice window there, so we could have used the under the door tool and just or we could have just used a piece of paper, or So there's just it's ridiculous how secure people think things are without
right. So this is a quick war story, and I know I'm actually going to come back to this to make sure we have time for other things, but this is another video similar to the bypass with the plastic. This is a shove knife. So you can see Tim on the other side of the door. So we're going to lock the door. So we'll show this is a double crash door. There's several different ways we could have bypassed this, but this particular one, you'll see here in a second.
Use the shove knife.
If you look right here, you'll see it just real quick. It'll unlatch the door and then pop open. So
what's really funny about this too, though, is that they had a PTZ camera there, and it was all scratched up. I mean, the dome was it was a mess.
It was really weathered.
And it was weathered. There's moisture in there. They couldn't see us anyway, even if we were trying to stay under the radar even more.
Yeah. And then some more things just sort of building off of the piece of plastic or the shove knife. You have these traveler's hooks or shrum tools, and they're super useful. They have a very slim profile, so it's a lot easier to get those in between door frames to load doors a lot easier when something like the hall pass or something is too thick to go in there. Another thing too, so we talk about strike plates, and it's supposed to help prevent people from loading the doors, because it's supposed to block the latch. Well, it's really easy to bypass those too, simply by going over the top of it and pressing down, and now you're loading that door. This tool, it's actually about this long and it's metal, so it looks like a weapon. So you have to be,
boomerang.
Yeah, if you're walking around with that in your bag somewhere like New York or something and someone questions you, it's not going to be a good day for you. So you can do something like that, or a coat hanger. So if you just take the bottom part of the coat hanger down here and cut that off, then you can just put a slight bend in it and you can put it in over the top of the striker plate and just still do the same thing with the coat hanger. So
the latch bolt, how do you prevent this? A good way to do it is just having your latch bolt set properly.
Yep.
So if you look at the security pin here on the left, just making sure that's setting correctly. A lot of times too, people that install, whether they're proximity like badge readers or they're installing physical security controls, they're the same guys, they're maintenance guys, they're wearing multiple hats. So making sure that these guys understand how to implement the hardware and install it correctly and securely is very important.
yeah, and want to mention too, this fixes and prevents all of those attacks that we just showed with the plastic, the shrum tools, the shove knife, all that stuff. Those will no longer work if this pin is correctly set. That's all it takes.
So there's a couple different other tools out there. The double door tool or the crash bar tool. You can get this. You can make them. In fact, we'll show you in the next slide one that we made. But this is really easy when there's a gap. So if there's a gap, or there's no astragal or anything like that protecting, you can just shove it in the middle of the doors, turn it, and then just open.
Yeah, like
from
the doors in the back there,
like those
double crash bars.
Yeah.
There's a big enough gap where you can actually put it through there, turn it, and open the doors. So that's perfect example of those doors right there. So this is one that I made. I put heat shrink on each side to just try to prevent scratching for wooden doors, things like that. Yeah, you just get the right dimensions, you bend it, make sure that it's strong enough, and there you go. And it's small enough that you can put it in the small of your back or basically in a pocket or something. So
another thing is a deadbolt thumb turner. Same thing. If you have a gap there and you can get to the deadbolt, this is a neat little tool that you can turn, and it spins on the tip, so it turns the deadbolt knob.
Yeah. So if you look at the slides here, I just kind of went through those, but so you put it, and these are really, really popular for retail locations. So you just put it there, you insert. Now you actually put it on the thumb turn on the other side, and now the door's open.
And again, the windows are super handy.
Yeah, windows are helpful.
Any hotel you stay in, we talk. I wrote a couple blogs on hotel room security, but this is always an issue. But outside of that, corporate offices, federal buildings, I mean, anywhere you go, you find these lever handles. They're easily bypassed or opened with the under the door tool. I'm sure several of you guys are familiar with this. Pretty easy to make. It looks like this. On the right here is a video of me doing it in my hotel room a little while back.
And this video creeps a lot of people out because obviously we're all staying at a hotel. This hotel actually has these handles in your room.
Yeah, so you see it goes under the tool, under the door, and then you just find the handle, you pull down on the string, and voila. You've bypassed their biometric two-factor, multi-factor PIN and fingerprint reader and badge reader, and just by putting a piece of wire with piano string under the door.
So how do you fix that? Super simple. Grab a hand towel, roll it up really, really tight, and this is from my room from DEF CON last year. Yeah.
For reasons.
For reasons, yeah. So just shove it in there. Now that wire cannot get under there. If you want a long-term solution, just get something that you can put on the door that blocks it from going over there.
Because some people have to have these lever handles, right? There's some that are beveled. the little slide off so it doesn't get a good latch on. But yeah, I think the guy on the right there is usually what we recommend to some of our clients.
Yeah, and then Tim using the window, just watching it go right on the handle, so that's helpful too.
Yes.
And then requests for exit sensors. We love to bypass these things because if I were to make up some sort of a really good percentage, like 99% of the time, that'd probably be pretty accurate with the amount of sensors that we bypass.
I would say tailgating and then bypassing rec sensors are our top two ways to infiltrate a building.
Yeah, so they're usually too close to the door and their angle is too far down. So just by inserting canned air, spraying it, it trips the sensor because you have motion from the air, and then the canned air is colder, so there's your temperature variance.
Yeah, so some of the reg sensors are temperature fluctuation is what signals it along with the movement. It's not just movement. Yes?
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
You can do a lot of stuff like that. I think David Olin did it with some scotch. So,
Yep.
I think Dave Kennedy did it with a vape.
Yep.
Yes, but but the thing with the canned air is that it is cold enough. So, and some of the water, it could be colder water too. It just needs to have that different temperature variance to trip the ones that read temperature fluctuations.
Yep. So here's a quick video. This shows Tim and I getting access from an external door through two internal doors into the target area that we were tasked with trying to access. You'll see a few things here. Tim, let's see.
Well, let me go ahead and say this, that this is after we did it, because the client said, hey, how did you guys do that? And we were like, oh, well, we'll record a video for you. That way you can show your guys, and now you know how.
Yeah,
so,
let's see. Let me go back. So this is where, with a paper clip, so the magnetic locks, like slog, things like that, you can completely basically disable those by putting something up there like a paper clip. Now, I will caution, obviously that looks awful. So if anyone's doing door checks or paying attention, why is a paper clip stuck to the door with tape? That's one good way to check incident response. So you can see I just pull the door right open. There's no resistance on that at all. So yeah, we'll watch the rest of this video real quick. Can you hear that out there at all?
Okay, that's all right. So just basically on the other side of that door is another door with a fingerprint reader and a badge reader. This door, like you have to badge in to get to this door to badge in, to get to a fingerprint reader to badge in, and then you're into the target zone. So this is the fingerprint reader here. I do want to say, make sure you carry 2 straws with you with the canned air.
At least 2 straws. This is pretty funny.
Because I'm doing it and I shoot the straw off, and I'm like, oh.
Now he's trying it without the straw. He's like,
yeah,
the straw came off. See, the straw came off. So we paused it, put it on there, and that's just full disclosure. You know, we're not trying to go through and look like we do everything perfect. If we mess up, we're going to tell you we mess up. So, yeah, and actually the video of coat hanger and hand warmer, or under the door tool and a hand warmer as well.
Oh, just to grab the straw. Yeah,
yeah. When we actually opened this door, the straw was probably a good 6 feet away.
I mean, it was gone. Then also be aware of chemical burns.
Yeah.
When you use canned air, especially turning that upside down, it's no fun when you get it on your skin.
So, and then they just talked about that. So this was one of my favorite assessments to date. When they were like, oh, we've spent so much money on all new access controls on this brand new data center, and we'll call it the super secure data center in Washington. And so after we were told that we will not be able to get into there, this is us doing a video of me getting into a cage. So
we didn't have canned air this time, but we needed another temperature variance, and then we also needed motion. So we used the under the door tool that was in my bag. And Brent had a hand warmer in his bag and a Hack the Planet bracelet.
Yep.
And
so if you watch the badge reader, right about there it turns green, and thank you.
Yay, we're inside.
So Super easy.
Yeah, so your gates and your fences, if you have a request for exit or anything like that, don't use those. It defeats the purpose.
Yeah, at least in such a small cage.
Yep.
Yep. So we're talking about the shove bar. So if you're trying to attack these crash bars or put canned air in to trip the rec sensor, how do you stop those things? Well, the reason you're able to do that is because there's a physical gap in the door. If you remove that gap or you cover that gap with an astragal, there's no way for those attacks to work anymore unless somehow there's enough room to go under the door. But you can also put weather stripping and other things there that will help close those gaps. Now all those attacks you've just seen, they don't work, except for this. So again, back to the magnetic locks. You can see that paper clip sticking out. Looks awful. One of the reasons I carry gaffer's tape, do you remember the ink pen earlier where I had gaffer's tape wrapped around the top of it? So if you take a strip of gaffer's tape, just maybe 3-4 inches, and as long as it's at least an inch wide, you can take that off, you can stick it up there, and it actually blends in really well. And the best thing about that is there's still resistance on the door. So when they come around and they do door checks and they pull on it, it's going to seem normal. But when you need access again, you just give it a good strong tug and you're in. So
also, some of the sensors too won't trip that door is open because it's so thin. They're still receiving the signal that the door is closed on some of the monitoring devices.
Yep.
So again, tailgating, piggybacking, free entry. That's a thing we do all the time. Yes, question.
In my case, it was the fire marshal that said, if you have a mag lock, you need request for exit.
right.
Yeah, you do need request for exit. It's just the way.
Get rid of the mag locks? Is that what-
Well, the request for exit too is also just where you position it. But yeah, the mag locks, I think it's just making sure you're actually checking the doors. Because what happens is some people don't even check doors at all.
Yeah.
You know, the guards will just walk around and they'll badge in and then they'll go back in or out of the building. So it's important that if you have guards that you're actually checking these doors, pull on them, make sure there's no tape on the latching mechanisms or the magnetic lock.
Yeah, there are alternatives to the exposed mag locks like that, where they actually lock inside of the door frame. Mm-hmm. So once you open it, there's not really a way to disable the mag lock because it isn't exposed like that. So there are alternatives that are a bit more secure. Is there another question? Yeah.
Yes.
Why didn't you use a Snickers bar instead of
That's a good question, but it's going to take a really long time to explain.
I didn't want to eat too much. So yeah.
So yeah, tailgating, piggybacking, just a friendly face and, use your charisma or look busy. I mean, we're not going to get into this too much because a lot of our talks, we talk about social engineering and, Jason did a good job covering that. But tailgating, again, it's one of the top ways any of us get into buildings.
Yeah, and that's just to add on to what Jason was saying earlier. It's such an easy way to get in, a very common way. It's a natural response for humans to want to help each other. And so unfortunately, when we have to think like bad guys, we have to exploit people's kindness, which is an awful thing to say, but that's what bad guys do. So,
Nice person.
Stupid bad guys.
Ways to prevent this, Jason had mentioned too, like just a big open floor plan that's monitored. That's pretty intimidating when you walk in, right? Mm-hmm. And then having a guard there that's actually doing their job. But there are man-trap security doors. There's other man-traps out there that help to reduce piggybacking.
Yeah, so some of the best tailgating prevention systems that I've seen, I'm not going to get too vendor specific, but I do want to mention one, Boone Edom. They make a really, really high secure mechanism like this one. You see it's a turnstile, and it has this cool thing called stereo vision in it. And so when someone is walking in, it will sense if there is more than one person trying to go in at once, and so it will automatically lock you in that area. It also has detections that you can set too, where if an individual is walking through this area and they've badged in, and they have an item that's in the shape of a weapon, it will also alert. So there's a lot of cool things that you can tweak, pressure floor mats, things like that. So there are ways to work towards mitigating piggybacking, tailgating, whatever you want to call it.
Earlier, Jason mentioned seeing the pin, like where they're rubbed off. It's been used a lot. You can tell which code. You can kind of narrow it down. This is a way that Brent and I like to do it sometimes, is just using a sharp or highlighter to highlight the numbers, and then before someone comes in, before it gets really busy, and then you can just go back and you can use the UV light to see which pins or numbers they're pushing. That way you can kind of reduce the amount of guesses that you're aiming for.
Yeah, so I've put a lot of time sort of researching this. Now, there are certain pin pads, like rubber pin pads and things, where Sharpie is not the best medium to use. However, it's pretty common that I've seen for garages, things like that, to have more weather-resistant buttons, such as plastic or metal. So if you use the Sharpies, and they have to be the older Sharpies that don't say smudge-free. So if it's just an old school or a really cheap Sharpie, then it gives you a good 6 to maybe 8, 9 minutes before it dries. But it's plenty enough time to run up and paint the pad, clone someone's badge, and then go see what buttons they push. Again, as Jason mentioned, now we know at least the 4 buttons that were pushed to bring it down to 21. Now we have 21 guesses for that. So it's just a quick, cheap way to try to decrease the amount of guesses you have to take with a pin pad. Real quick shout out, Deviant Olem. He's done a lot of research for things that are keyed the same. And so this is a sample key kit that we use thanks to his recommendations. And so when you find things like door keying access controls, you can buy the master key off of Amazon or any other place. So when you see a common door keying access control, you just unlock it, you open it, and there's a postal service button that you push, and whatever door they have assigned to that will open. So, yeah.
At least getting you through the first layer of physical, that barrier. So what to look for when you get inside, one of the things we like to look for is service elevators. They usually have unrestricted access. You can use fire keys. There are keys out there that you can use to bypass badge restricted floors, but some of the newer elevators have different keys. There's different sets out there, but it's just easier to find a service elevator and use that. Oftentimes too, they don't have cameras for some reason. I don't know why that is, but it is a common case.
Yeah, my favorite thing about finding service elevators is that they're often used by, if there's some sort of a food crew or cleaning crew or something. The reason they use that, other than the full access to all floors, is that they are often back out of view of the public. So when you're using this, you're not in the main lobby most of the time where it's easier to be noticed. You're back out of the way, so that you're not getting in the way. And so it's a good find.
Also, if you're wearing like a maintenance outfit or something like that, then it's more appropriate for you to fit in, and no one's really going to question why you're entering the loading dock area and going to the service area.
Yeah. Or a high-vis vest. Right? There's so many things.
Padlocks. There's a lot of really bad ones. There's some of them. Master lock is not the master of much.
Yeah, does anybody notice the theme with our pictures up there?
Yeah, so there's several ways to bypass these, shims, things like that. We usually carry a handful of shims on us in case we can't pick the lock or something, or have a harder time. If it's a combination lock, it's easy to bypass combination locks with a shim. If they've got the hook on both sides, the teeth on both sides, you can use 2 shims.
Right.
Some of them, there's a lot of good locks out there too. So just make sure that when you're getting padlocks, don't go to Walmart and just buy the master locks in the hardware section.
Yeah, if you really want to protect it, don't do that. And there's even one you can Google. I'm not going to point it out, but there's one on here that you can open simply by hitting it in the right spot with a hammer.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, if you guys go to any lock picking village at any HackerCon, you're going to see a bunch of these locks. Why are they there? Just because they're pretty easy to pick, and that's usually where you can get started. So,
yeah, it's beginner locks. And if you whisper gently to one, that'll open as well. So we like to look for hinge pins. A lot of times in commercial settings with the proper doors, this isn't really something you see a lot. However, there are times where we've been on commercial style sites like warehouses, things like that, where they just want a quick entry door, and they expose the hinge pins externally. So you don't need to unlock the door when you can just take the door off.
It's amazing too when the client does, rent something like that property management assessment I did. Some of their doors, they had the hinge pins outside, but they had retinal scanners.
Yeah.
So it's like, man, you spent a lot of money to put that fancy eyeball reader there. It's like,
Let me use my $10 tool.
yeah. So the Bang It is a handy little tool that just you can just whack it real hard with a hammer or whatever. You're not going to carry a hammer on you, but you can pick a lot of different things to just
like a bump hammer.
Yeah, bump hammer. We
for
use
bump
that.
keys. That actually works with it too.
Yeah, so it just knocks the pin up pretty easily.
A quick fix for that, if your hinge pins are exposed and there's not really a way to mitigate that, what you can do is buy these really cheap things called security pins, like the door hinge security pins. So you take one screw out on one side, one screw out on the other side, leave that hole open, and on the other side you put this guy in. So now when the door is closed, this actually goes into that. So even if I take those hinge pins off, I can't lift that door up now because it's stuck into place.
Yeah,
so
and they're pretty cheap too.
Yeah.
It's a cheap remediation. So keys. Fun story. Brent and I got into a security control room. They had a wafer style lock on an aluminum box that housed their keys. So we were able to pick that really quick. We got in there, and then we were doing an assessment at a different data center a couple days after. It's the same client, different location. When we're in there, we're like, holy crap, look at this key. And they marked it, and it said XYZ data center. And I was like, huh. And so we took a picture of it. We went to Lowe's, we bought a file, a blank key, and we played arts and crafts in our hotel room lobby for a while, and it worked.
Yeah, Drew Culbertson helped with that
yeah,
one too.
Yeah. So don't take pictures of your keys either and put them online because of stuff like this, because that's exactly what we did. We just took different angles, got close, we measured it, all this stuff. Very highly technical.
Arts and crafts.
But there are also on-site field duplicator kits out there too, where you can actually duplicate the key while you're there.
Yeah. Badge emulation. Sometimes you don't have to clone a badge. There's been several times where we've just seen what they look like, go back to the hotel, craft something up in Photoshop or your image editor of choice, and print it off. We've even had a guy that we know that you got access to a pretty secure area with just a piece of paper that he drew on with some random thing with a red crayon.
Yeah,
some random marks.
I got access to a health, it was like a health processing place, and got inside. I found one of their letterheads, and I had a sleeve for a badge, an HID badge. I found one of their letterheads, like their envelope that had their logo on it. I cut that up, and I cut another thing, and I made a badge just by cutting and putting layers of their stuff on there.
You did that while you were inside of the
Yeah, I did it inside. I did it in a conference room while I was setting up an access point to make sure they could read it from the parking lot, and I was just they're cutting it out. I locked the door to made my own office, so it was pretty fun.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, if you can find a conference center or a conference room or an office you can get into, it's pretty cool. Go in there and you just lock the door, you plug into the network and you do whatever, and then when someone starts knocking, you're like, 1 second, I'm changing, or something like that, just okay, come back. There's a lot of different ways you can do that.
Badge cloning, we do a lot of badge cloning as well. Some clients like to know, hey, is our badge easy to clone or replicate? And most of the times it is, because people go with the stock HID badges. You can use several different things to do this. Our favorite is just the Proxmark. There's newer versions of this, but the Proxmark 3 and the Proxmark 3 Easy is kind of our defaults. We usually set one to low frequency and one to high frequency. There's different ways to do this. There's toggle pins. You could have the same beat reader replay and stuff. You can set it to low or high and just toggle that. But this is just kind of our setup.
And I want to go back real quick. So this is from dangerousthings.com. It's a little wallet-sized RFID checker. And so when we are not sure if someone's badge reader is set to low or high frequency, you can walk up to it with this and it will flash and tell you if it's low or high frequency.
It just fits in your wallet too, and it's a little powered thing, and it'll glow whether it's low frequency or high frequency.
Yeah.
It's a neat little tool.
So one of the things we love to do with clipboards, we like to, I guess, weaponize them, if that's still the cool term to use. But we basically put badge cloners in there. This is my cheap, quick setup. You can tell I took the Proxmark. I just used some gaffer's tape to fix the antennas and the device, and then a battery inside. Of course, on the top, I'll lay papers on top of it, like some printouts to make it look like it's something legitimate for whatever the case is.
One of the things I like to do is inventory. So I'm doing an inventory I'm getting the serial numbers off of the servers for different things. I walked up to a security guard and went over to the security system, and I started writing stuff down. He was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, we're just taking inventory because we're going to replace these later. Just need to get the serial number." And then we had a conversation, established a rapport, and he let me into the data center later. But using the clipboard is a handy prop. This is a fancier, older version.
This is Tim's.
Of my covert clipboard.
Fancy schmancy.
Yeah. So I've just got a Pi in there. I've got a few different antennas on the top there, and I've also got the Proxmark there.
And he can watch Netflix with it too, I think.
Can. I got a wireless USB that you can SSH into, so you can somebody else can just, as you're sitting there reading badges, they can clone them from the car or something.
I like the wave at the end. Hi, Mom.
So this is actually one of my favorites.
Yeah, I love this one. This is great.
Favorite stories. Brent and I, it was a really highly secured facility. And we knew it was going to be hard to get into there because we had done an assessment there a couple of years before. We also knew that some of the people there watch our DEF CON talks and such. And
we found that out during.
Yeah, during, which was funny because they let us in. We tailgated and we're going. They turned around. They're like, "Wait a minute!
I'm like,
aren't you Tim and Brent?"
I'm like,
no.
I saw you. I was like, why? I was like, I saw your talk at DEF CON. And it was like,
"Are you social engineering this?"
Yeah,
no.
Yeah, like, and they said, are you doing an assessment against us right now? And we're like, no, man, we're just here to meet with whoever. And I was like, okay, I'm going to keep my eye on you.
And we're like, all right.
It's like, all right, while you're keeping your eye on us, we're going to go sit in here in this conference room while we're waiting for so-and-so. So I was like, his desk is right outside. I plug up my
laptop. I start running some
I unplug the phone, so I get that network access. Tim plugs directly into the wall. So we're both sitting there with our laptops that both have, this is the laptop. It's got hacker stickers all over it. And we're facing the dude, so he sees the back of the laptop, and he's just sitting there looking at us and talking like whatever he's talking about to his coworkers. So I, make a fake phone call. It's like, oh, that sucks. You're not going to be able to make it. All right, we'll meet you at the other place. And I'm like, hey, man, so-and-so can't make it. Sorry to bother you guys. We'll see you later. And then it was like, all right, guys. It was great. So we walked out of there with some information. And it was fun. All right. But real quick on this guy here, how did we get into the building? Brent and I had set those badge readers. We shoved them in a coffee cup, and we shoved them in a muffin bag. And then we went out back where people were smoking. We hung out. Pretend to be smokers as well, which, there are still some smoking areas. Some places there's not anymore, but this place fortunately had one. And we went over, and the guy had a lanyard, and it was the same color as mine. It looked like from a conference. And I had my coffee cup, and I was like, hey, man, you've got that same lanyard. Yeah, and I had my muffin bag, and I was like, oh,
we both cloned his badge, and then we waited for him to go in. We just went to the front door and entered using his badge to go to the front door as he went into the back door.
The funniest part about that was as you go in the main door, there was the guard station right there, and with the glass, and where they can be conscious of who's coming and going. So the employee uses his badge. Tim badges in with his coffee cup, and then I badge in with my muffin bag.
So, Jason was saying this earlier, too, the female name, right? There's a dude here, and there's a female name that just popped up using that badge. It's the same thing. If the guy's badging in 3 times in a row, it's probably there's something going on there, right?
Something's off.
Because we use that same badge to badge in across the facility, and he went upstairs, we went downstairs, we got in the data center using his badge.
So this is one of my toys that I like. This is kind of a long-range, low-frequency cloner. Kind of a big footprint, so you need a decent-sized backpack for it. But it's cool. I can set it up somewhere, clone badges, connect to it wirelessly, and see what I have, and then use a smaller Proxmark to write that badge.
And if you've seen a Mr. Robot, too, that's what they use in the coffee shop there. So this is I actually got this from a security guard. Walked up to the security guard, was just making friendly conversation. Brent was talking to him, distracting him, and I cloned his badge, and then I got through the little glass man trap using the security guard badge, which is handy. Security guard badges are great to replicate because they have access to everything.
Yeah.
So
Tim is holding the badge cloner, his hand like this, and he's talking to the security guard. Look over here, and this is the guard's badge, and he's like,
he's talking
"Yeah,
to
man."
Brent.
He's getting it set, sitting there like pushing the buttons.
He doesn't
and
know
stuff.
what I'm doing. I was just because we're trying at this point to get caught, and we're like, let's go to the security guard.
So he's doing this,
his badge.
and while he's talking to the guy, looking at him, he just does that. Clueless. He didn't even. I don't think he even noticed Tim just put his hand up to him. Yeah, it was amazing. It's awesome.
There's different little things you can do too. For example, the garage readers. This is what actually Brent built his Proxmark into to get that bigger antenna. But the garage readers here, you can use a bleed key. You can use ESP key. These are things that you just plug in, little vampire clips. Plug in there, and you can Bluetooth into it, and you can replay. As people badge in and out, you can replay their badges via Bluetooth.
Yeah, and they have a mobile app too, which is super handy. Yeah. So you just, as you walk up to it, you just pick what badge you want to replay, and you're in.
So we're gonna speed through the rest of this
here.
here.
I think we're running close on time. So, yeah, USB attacks. Don't expose these things where anybody can walk up and just plug something into it. This was from a pretty large place. They were remodeling, so excuse our mess. I'm just like, okay, thanks for the freebie there. Don't do this. If you don't need USB ports on your systems, disable them. Physically block them or just disable them.
Here's some of the attacks you can use. Whatever Hack 5 comes up with their verbiage for naming their tools.
We gave them some name options there at the bottom if Darren wants to use any of those. So one of my favorite tools too, it's basically the rubber ducky, but it has a wireless access point into it, built into it. So you plug that in, and there's a really cool mobile app, and these things are super cheap. So once you plug it in, I connect to the access point on this thing, and I inject whatever commands I want directly into that system. It's really cool.
Disguising your USBs too, like this lion turtle putting some tape on it, it says do not remove.
Yeah, do you notice a theme there? So you see that, and then on this next one, speed test, do not remove. All of my devices that I drop, I put that on there in big yellow tape because I don't want somebody saying like, well, I'm not touching.
Even that old school case there, the Pwn plug years ago had. We still use that case like sometimes because it's people don't really question it.
Yep.
Unless you've got don't use, what I'm saying is don't use a Raspberry Pi with a clear case and all your hacker stickers and antennas sticking all over it. No. Oops.
So another thing to look for, that's the top of my head because Tim's a lot taller than I am taking a picture. That's true. We're in the server room and they had their camera system there, so why not, disable the cameras for a bit? Or whatever else we wanted to do with that particular system.
And this other side is funny. I got into human resource, like a dimple lock. I was able to pick it and get into where they store employee records. And they kept the social security numbers on the top of the things with the names. So it would be like street, Jason, and then his social security number. That's how they organized everything. So exactly. So I took a picture of that, and then I had I don't know how many identities in one picture. It was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, is that the one, or was it a different one where our point of contact you actually pulled his?
It was his. Yeah, I found the point of contact's employee record, and I stole it. And then I went to his office where he wasn't there. We got into his office, and I laid his employee record on his desk with a Post-it that said, "Here you go," in our card. Which later on, he said, "Man, I can't see that."
Yeah, I can't look at my.
He goes, "You guys are going to get me in trouble." So,
this is a funny one too. So we had been in this place for a while, and this is Tim on top of a vending machine with his head in the ceiling. To the right, right here was the entrance for the cafeteria. This was at lunchtime. People were going in and out for lunch. No one stopped and said, "Hey, why is that guy on top of the vending machine with his head in the roof?"
And why was I doing it? Because in front of me is the data center. They didn't have a firewall or floor to ceiling.
Yeah,
and so I was able to crawl over it Again, your shredder bins, don't have crappy shredder bins.
Yeah, we had this game we play where we stick our hands in there and pull it out, and it's called Shredder Bin Bingo. So whoever gets the coolest document wins, and the other person buys them a beer or something later. So
Unlocked workstations, we always look for this stuff. If it's already unlocked, then, thanks for the help. You guys have done us a solid.
It's kind of hard to see this, but this was left unlocked, and it was on product price management. So that could have been
leaving
cool.
Keys in your server racks that you're trying to restrict, and keeping ladders in there for us. Because this is funny, because if you look at the top where they run the cable, this is segmented because it's two different companies.
I fit through there, just FYI. Stay out, yeah. If you want somebody to stay out of something, don't put that on there, because then they're going to go in there.
Yeah. So what was in there was a bunch of keys to desk.
Yeah.
Which is in an unlocked
And I was like,
drawer.
I have to take a picture of this. So
Jason mentioned this too, Post-its and writing your password underneath your keyboards. We see this all the time.
All the time.
All the time. And it's ridiculous. We also see...
Yeah, but wait, there's more.
These.
Yes.
I have seen probably, I've seen probably 10 of these in the last few years. Because, Target and stuff, they sell these things. And it's actually titled, your password logbook.
Yeah, passwords. Yeah, don't use those.
Just to speed through this, because I know we're kind of running over a little bit. A couple different assessments where you just establish that rapport, you get close to them, you get nice with them, you tell them that you're, like this security guard that I'm making laugh, Brent and I went up there. I pretended to be an auditor. Brent was one of the guys from another office who was a manager, and he was escorting me as a contractor there doing a NIST assessment. I was wondering how they handled their badges, their one-day badges and such, and she began to explain to me, and I said, "Oh, do you have these badges? Are these badges active?" "Yes, here's a whole binder full." And then they give me like a binder full of badges, and I've got my clipboard there, and we copied like 50.
It's like, Tim, once you go around there and sit, it looks like it's going to take you a while.
Yeah.
So he's sitting behind the desk next to the guard, putting these on top of his clipboard cloner. Yeah. She didn't say anything. He would pull one out, and it's plastic, and so the card's plastic, and to read it, he would lay it on there and like kind of go like this, and it was like, making a noise like... And she never thought, okay, why is this guy rubbing all the cards on his clipboard and then putting them back in?
This lady was super nice. She had a picture of her daughter or granddaughter playing soccer, and Brent began to talk to her about, the soccer games and their kids and stuff. And while they did, I said, "Hey, I'm doing a network assessment test. I just need to get access to your system." I asked her to lock her system. I plugged in a keylogger. Then I said, "Actually, I need to check one thing. Could you log back in?" And then she logs back in. I said, "Okay, thanks." Then Brent continues talking to her, and now I've got her domain, username, password. And then I was like, "All right, I think we're wrapped up. I need to get your name first, because her name spelled weird." I was like, "Can I see your badge so that I can write it down?" Because it was a long name. It was a mouthful. And she was like, "Oh, sure." Gave me her badge, and we cloned her badge and wrote it down.
Yeah. I felt so awful because
he did. He felt so bad after that assessment. He was like, "Man, I gotta find her after this and apologize to her."
So,
I don't care.
Tim's a jerk. Yeah, clean desk policy. Again, into some things Jason talked about earlier.
Yeah,
don't hide. Password management is not a post-it. So,
you do the security awareness training. If you lead your security by checkbox, you're doing it wrong. Stop. Just because you want to be compliant doesn't mean that you're secure. Just because you've met some standards doesn't mean you're secure. Just because you do an annual security awareness training with a few questions at the end of your fancy slideshow doesn't mean you're secure. And it certainly doesn't mean that the employees that are taking that are going to retain that information and apply it. So this is where security culture needs to take place, and it needs to take precedence over security awareness training.
Now, checkbox security, that's a good baseline, it's a good start. You obviously need that, but consider real-world scenarios. Actually push it to the limits. Put more budget to that. So this is from Google, but you'd be surprised how many times we've seen really stupid stuff like this.
Don't leave gaps under your door. You guys can read this. I know we're running out of time, and we're here at our last slide. But yeah, if you guys have any questions or anything you'd like to talk to us, feel free to meet us after in the hallway, or just follow us Zanchin Hacks on Twitter, or Brent W Design, or just nttsecurity.com. Cool.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you guys.